Hi there, I'm Thomas and welcome to Prussian Husar. Today we dive right in the third part of my little 3-part series about my progress in mounted weaponry during the last year. Now a quick look at the content of this video. After the introduction we first have a look at the changes of my equipment. Then we take a look at my riding process. Afterwards, again changes of my equipment, followed up again by my progress. At the end there will be a short conclusion. Moving on to the equipment, since there were some changes this time. And now let's have a look at the changes of the equipment. After a while, the horse and myself were good enough to step up the game again. So I added a Prussian flag to the lance. Again made by myself. Here I used the original measurement, of course. Additionally to the ground targets, which were the cones, I added some high targets, which again I built myself. So I was able to get foreground and upper hits. Let's jump right into the riding. First of all, as you see, the ground was wet and slippery, so there was no gallop this time in terms of safety. Looking at our equipment shows us that we have come far. As previously said, it was time to use a flag. Slowly, of course. I started with the flag rolled up and rolled it out step by step in full length, so the horse would get used to it. As usual, we started to get used to the lance again, so we began with thrusting in every direction, spinning and changing the grip. What we can actually observe is how much we became a team and how calm she is. Even with all the new equipment, meaning the flag and the higher targets. This time we worked with the cones as ground targets and rings as high targets. Additionally, we had a pattern on the ground made of wooden poles. This pattern was made out of a cross in the middle of the riding ground, around and of the different targets. We used elements of this pattern for our actions in combination with exercises. Distance and handling was in our focus. Since going for higher targets was a new thing for us, we had to train the fine motor skills of my hand. Well, the first thrusts were misses, but pretty soon there were some hits with an additional step forward to handling the lance. Here we see some preparation in order to get to know the pattern and our obstacles. Additionally, handling exercises were done constantly. The first hits in walk to get back used to the distance were good. Another thing to observe is that I got pretty comfy with the handling. The spinning above my head, which is called windmill, made a huge step forward. During this session I learned that the hooks, which are holding on to the rings, needed to get shortened. Getting the rings of the hooks turned out complicated, since it was not easy to hit them the right way. It was a bit more than to hit the cones. Not only the distance was important, but the fine motor skills of the hand too. Then the speed and even more the timing. That was also a great thing to increase my accuracy. We did a lot of work in trot and used a lot of poles on the ground. Using the circle in that pace with some hits while getting out was complicated, but after some tries I got it. We sure can acknowledge in this part how much we became a team. Just see how good we managed to maneuver on the ground. I did not have that much tension in my upper body anymore. Instead, I went with the flow. Just look how I was able to operate with the lance. Well, there sure is still not the right feeling about the distance, but we are getting there, step by step. And now, right into the circle. We were able to follow the poles almost perfect, and even managed to hit the cone, only not good enough. Afterwards, catching a breath for a minute. Following up were the first tries of thrusting at the rings and getting them off the hooks. Obviously the first times were not that good. Trying to get the ring here on the front shows how hard it is to get the ring out of the hook and what there is to take into account. So we had to take several tries before it worked out. Because it was our first try to get the rings, we sure had to do it in walk. So we built up that skill step by step, riding to a ring, get it hopefully off, and working on my fine motor skills. It got gradually better, as we can clearly see. We always had to approach our targets from the right side to be able to get them. Like every other training, it was try by try by try. We both got used to the lance and the new element, the flag. Our communication became increasingly better. Just the high targets require far more training. Then we started our first approaches in trot. Of course, that was learning a different type of distance regarding the movement skills. it was not easy to get the rings off. Again, some work in trot. Only this time my mistake was not to consider the right diameter of the circle as the right distance and angle I would have needed with my lance. Lucky me, that horse was so cool and quiet. Then we did more work in trot. More trot and tries about hitting the targets. Some worked out good, some not so much. While being in trot, our main goal was to practice with the high targets again and again. Even though it was our first time with them, we were able to make a huge progress. But I should have to work on my fine motor skills of my hand. Here in the last shot we can observe a fail. I was not able to get the ring of the hook properly. My lance stuck too long in it and so the whole thing crashed to the ground. This time almost everything stayed the same. Just one thing changed. I was able to sew myself another pair of riding pants. This time of corduroy and fully lined. That I wanted to test. And yes, of course, we will talk about the riding pants themselves pretty soon. And now, back to riding. Now, off to the grand final of the year 2022, which was pattern riding. So, my riding instructor just made up some patterns. We are going to look at them piece by piece and excavate their idea behind. They included some action with the lance, of course. The main goal here was to get the maximum amount of control about horse and weapon. Another thing was to write it as precisely as possible. As usual, we start with a warming up. Only this time the focus lies on being as precisely as it could be. As we see right at the beginning, my confidence with the lance was pretty high. So I started with a lot of handling exercises and thrusts. I have to mention here that my sit was not the best this time, since my legs were a bit too high up. A reason for it are the new riding pants, which need to be used a bit so they get smoother. More lance handling while communicating with the horse. Casey, which is the horse's name, was concentrated and pretty cool. The spinning above my head worked well, and I managed to be in the point of balance of the lance. Since we were looking for precision, this time I stopped for some thrusts like this one to get an idea of the right distance. For this thrust I was slightly too far away, but still in reach. We did the same at the ring, where I got the distance right. And we can observe that Casey seems to be a bit curious about what's going on there with the lance. We have to keep in mind that she lost her right eye, so she cannot see what is going on the right side and might be suspicious of the sounds. As my last action before starting with the riding patterns, I got a second ring and brought it to my instructor. Then we started the first pattern. We were slowly building them up, piece by piece. So we began with a slow walking one to get in the groove. It was a quick one with an emphasis on being in the right distance and working on the fine motor skills of my hand and legs. I stopped here every time before doing a thrust, no matter if it was a cone or ring. Let's enjoy this one for now. In the second one, we included more exercises. Additionally, we added thrusts mostly in walk. I think we managed this one pretty good, even though one of the thrusts almost failed. So I have definitely to work on my fine motor skills. But see for yourselves, what do you guys think? Moving on to the third pattern. This one started with changing the grip and a thrust downwards. Again changing the grip. And then some backward movement. Followed up by going around a corner. Afterwards, another thrust downwards. Immediately we changed into trot to get to rings. Hold on with the trot until we came to the gate made of cones. Thereafter we slowed down back to walk, just to get another ring. Made another circle in the left direction. And went back to trot again. And finally stopped. Diving into the next one. That was a really tricky pattern, which needed some tries. The first pattern failed because I had problems with holding the balance of the lance while spinning it. So we started with a circle. At the end I had the task of spinning the lance. Well, here we can actually see my problems to hold it in balance. Afterwards a thrust to get a ring. Changing our pace into trot and riding a circle to the other side of the riding ground. Going for more rings. Doing a U-turn and slowing down. Then stopping and preparing for a backwards movement. And going around an edge backwards. Well, I did need some tries for that obviously, but in the end we managed to get it done. We gave the pattern another shot, so see for yourself which try was better. Now going for the rings, but with a close-up. This time I wore my field cap in the end to get some historical shots, because sometimes you just gotta have to look awesome, right? So let's enjoy these before we get to the conclusion. Now that we have seen the last part of my last year progress in mounted weaponry, let's do another conclusion. In this last part of my series, we were able to see huge steps forward in terms of controlling the lance, communicating with the hose, and in our overall skills. The addition of the flag was no problem, as was the adding of fire targets, without a single issue. Sure, we all had to learn and get along with it, but it worked out. Overall, I can say that our approach over the last year, by doing everything carefully, step by step, was a success so far. We made a lot of progress in the skills we need, that is, handling the lance and the riding skills. The main points: footwork, timing and distance still need to be trained a lot. Especially timing and distance are really hard to get right. But we are getting there. Now I'm looking forward to this year, what it will bring in progress. Do you guys want to see something special? Let me know in the comments below. That was the last part of my series. But the next video is already in the making. And it will be hopefully finished soon. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one. And see you next time.